have some really cool people here from our community. As you know, this is a show that's based on writing and storytelling. And tonight we have Bonnie Pipkin in the studio to talk a little bit about an event that we have here in Chico monthly that revolves around community and storytelling. Bonnie, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you for having us.
If you would, Bonnie, if you could introduce yourself a little bit, tell our listeners a little bit about what you do here in Chico with the Bonfire storytelling, and then go ahead and introduce these wonderful guests that you have in the studio with us as well.
Okay. My name's Bonnie Pipkin, and I am the producer, creator, and host of Bonfire Storytelling. It's a multi-generational storytelling event, and each month we choose a different theme and 6 storytellers from each age decade. So someone in their 20s, 30s, 40s. We've had up to 80s. We would go up to 100s. We've had teens. We've had a 9-year-old even. So just 6 storytellers from a different age decade. And I work with my friend, Dylan Latimer.
Hello.
He is my co-conspirator, co-director, and we work with storytellers for about a month to bring their story to the stage. And with us tonight, we also have 2 former storytellers. We have Adrianna Wiley.
Hello.
And we have Andrew Kinley.
Hello out there.
And they have both been through the experience with us. They have told stories. Andrew was part of our very first Bonfire, which was much smaller. It has exploded since then. But back in June when we started, we had all LGBTQ plus voices, and Andrew was our decade 40s storyteller and took the leap on the first one before people really knew what it was. And then we had Adrianna for the theme of ghosts. And so, yeah.
Wait, when was that, Adrianna? What month were you?
October.
Yeah. Yes,
Perfect.
and the cool thing about Adrianna and Andrew is that they also work at our events. So Andrew sets up the bar and sells all the delicious cocktails and other yummy drinks. And Adrianna is Adrianna of Adrianna's Bakery, the most delicious bakery in town, in my opinion. No, there's lots of good, but hers is great. And so she sells treats at intermission as well. So they have not only participated, but they have also seen many of the shows.
Part of the family.
Part of the family, the Bonfire family. Actually, everyone who participates becomes part of the family. It's a real community building experience. So,
what I absolutely love, this is Megan here. I've attended some of these Bonfire events. I can attest that it is true. These are great cocktails, and you serve amazing food.
Thank you.
What I absolutely love about this event, you guys, is that it is so much like a story, right? When we come into a story, anybody who's a writer, you know this feeling. You can come in with an idea, an outline, a theme, but it's the characters that make that story kind of take on a life of its own. And you don't know it, and you don't know those characters until you start writing, and then you really get introduced. Mm-hmm. What's so beautiful about this event is I think it really touches on this knowing of our community and these characters in our community, and you come in with a theme in the beginning of the night, and you leave with this sort of knowing of a greater understanding of these people, these characters, but also yourself. And as an audience member, it's so engaging. So there's no surprise that this took off the way that it did. And for listeners who have not attended an event, to put into perspective, this event is now taking place at the Women's Center, and it usually sells out in under 10 minutes. So, I mean, it's really a testament to how important it is to have this sort of connection in our community, to kind of preserve these stories of our community members and the multi-generational aspect, as well as the aspect of having diverse community come together. I think it's something we all need and desire and love, and you guys are doing such a good job of really preserving that.
Thank you.
So what I would like to do is, if you guys would go ahead, I'm going to open up the mic here to Bonnie. If you can tell us a little bit of what inspired you to kind of get this started in our community, and kind of go from there as far as how these storytellers themselves became inspired to share such personal, intricate, intimate stories with our community members?
Sure. Yeah. So I lived in New York for nearly 20 years. I grew up in Chico, but went away to New York and came back. And while I was in New York, I would attend some storytelling events, and most notably the Moth, of course, which is the grandfather or storytelling event. And I attended another one that was multi-generational like this, called Generation Women, that I found really inspiring. And I've always been I am a writer, I'm an author, and I have history of performing and producing and all of that. And so when I was back in Chico, I was sort of thinking, what can I do? What can I dip my hands into? And Dylan had just moved back from New York as well, also from Chico, and he jumped on board with me. But I love a personal story. I love you were talking about the characters in it, and there's something really cool about you are the main character of your story, and the people who are standing on stage are the main characters. They get 10 minutes to tell something pretty personal, and it is raw and real, and it's striking a chord because these storytellers are sharing their hearts. And so what's happening, and because we're presenting a diverse range of people on the stage, always working hard to have people of color, queer people, all ages. We're building community, and we're building empathy, even creating connections while this is happening, and while the people are listening, and while people are sharing. So, yeah.
I was going to ask, this is Dylan, I was going to ask Adrianna and Andrew what it was like to tell your story on stage. Like, what was it like for you, Adrianna?
For me, it was such a healing experience. I'm
going to interrupt. Sorry. Get as close as you can to the mic.
It was such a healing
Thanks.
experience. I personally had been wanting to tell my story for years, and it was a perfect time to. I'm so glad Bonnie asked me to do it. I told myself I wanted to do more things that scared me and say things to yes that I'd usually say no to. And I'm so glad I did it. I felt like I grew, I evolved after that experience, and it was much needed. I love Bonfire and the community.
And I'll just second that. It really was a catharsis for me, because at the time I had broken a bone in my hand, and I was really nervous to start this. And the first meeting I had with Bonnie, I was just driving in my car freaking out, like, what am I going to tell? There's so many things. There's so many funny things. There's sad things. There's great things. Do I talk about the pandemic? What do I do? And by the time I got there, I realized, like, I was so confused and scared that it reminded me of another time in my life when I was confused and scared, and that was before I came out. And so I was like, maybe I could tie this time in my life into that time, and it kind of just talking with her and then talking with Dylan and working with them and evolving that story and tying it together. I was incredibly nervous to do it. I mean, I've performed in front of thousands of people, and I've not been scared because there's too many people to be scared of. But performing in such an intimate space with, I think it was like 60, maybe 65 people, I was terrified. And I think it's because you're not singing someone else's song or your own song, and you're not playing a part or a character. It's like you have to be vulnerable, and it was a totally different experience. And I will say that it was incredibly rewarding the next day, just being like, there was this weight lifted, and it really helped see the world again, especially after going through COVID and moving here during a pandemic and just all that kind of trauma, and getting to kind of just release it and then be done. And it was just, I could breathe again. It was so amazing.
Yeah. Megan, you were talking about connectedness.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons why it sold out so quickly is because in a world of disconnect right now, people are looking for that. They're looking for human experiences. And that's what you get at Bonfire. People are pouring out their souls on that stage. And it's just so personable. And I think it just keeps people coming back. It really is a community. You see people come back. You see people, new faces. So it really is growing.
And it's nice to see people that every month come, and you see the same people, and you get to know them on such a deep level. And I grew up in a small town, moved to a big city, and now I'm back in kind of a bigger city than I grew up in, and it's nice to just have that community aspect again, and you really feel like we keep coming to this word is family. Is it really is starting to feel like a family, and it's just growing and growing, and like now we're doing 2 nights, and it's just we're gonna meet more people, and that's just so meaningful. And I, like you said, I think that this time in our society, it's something that people want, and I think that's why you named it Bonfire, wasn't it? Because we don't get around a bonfire anymore and tell those stories. It's kind of like being around a campfire, and you're just letting loose and being honest, and it's really a cool experience. I can't say enough good about it. Try and get tickets. It's amazing.
Please do.
It's called Bonfire for 2 reasons.
Oh.
One is because it is to evoke this feeling of being around a fire and telling stories, which is a very old human tradition. And then, of course, my name is Bonnie, so I had to...
Shameless.
It's not all about me, but, no, it's not.
No.
So yeah, I mean, one thing that I really love about this project is the cultivation part, where I'm reaching out to people kind of blindly, coldly. I didn't know Adrianna before.
Nope.
I had bought some of her goodies at some point.
Cafe Coda. You were with your daughter. I remember, clear as day.
Yep, my daughter really wanted a cookie or something, and then she maybe didn't eat it, but I did.
You did.
And Andrew, I didn't know either. And so I kind of am always looking around and looking for people with interesting stories and different backgrounds, and I keep a little note in my phone of people that I'm observing, but I also, hope that people will come to me as well that are interested in telling stories, in particular if you're from a more underrepresented community. But we work with all kinds of people, and I'm always looking, so it was fun to it's fun for me to talk to people and try to pull people into the project, and it's getting a little bit easier as people know what it is, but it's still kind of fun for me to just randomly reach out to people that are like,
you don't know what to expect.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. And working with Dylan. Oh
no, let's keep going. Sorry,
yeah, okay.
I'll chime in after.
And working with Dylan is amazing because he is a very smart person, and we work with these people for a month to put their story together. So I don't know, Dylan, do you want to talk about our process a little bit, or
maybe I'll jump in for a second?
Yeah.
It seemed like an appropriate time. If someone doesn't want to roll the dice and risk happenstance meeting you, how would we contact you?
Okay, so we have an Instagram page. It's Bonfire Storytelling Chico. And you can send a message there, or the email address is bonfirestorytellingchico@gmail.com. So I can be reached at both of those places.
I think the thing about this is that we have 2 different kinds of approaches. One is to pick the theme for the evening, and then to go around and ask people, hey, have you got a story on the theme, The Things We Hide, or It's Kind of a Funny Story, or Ghosts? And then see what they come up with. And usually people are really good about finding a story that is on that theme. And the other way that we've gone about it is to just talk to people and say, hey, what's that story that you really want to tell? What's that thing that happened to you that was so exciting, that was so dramatic, where the stakes were so high, and you suddenly turned around and looked at your life and said, nothing is going to be the same again? That's the other type of story that we're looking for too, and they're both great. I mean, it's been really rewarding, wouldn't you say, Bonnie, to do both kinds of stories?
Yeah, for sure.
And I wouldn't even pick one over the other. I mean, sometimes the stories that people come up with for the themes are as fantastic as the one story that's the central story of their life.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then the other one that we have done is a story slam, where we invite the audience to put their names in the hat. And in that case, we pull 10 names out of the hat, and they do a 5-minute story on a theme. And that one was also really, really fun. Human beings have a natural storytelling ability, it turns out. And so they come in with a story already, a personal story already. During that month that we work with them, when we do the theme night, typically, like Bonnie and I are sort of refining it. we're saying, okay, you need to zoom in on this one part of the story and maybe leave out the interpretation. You don't need to tell us like what we should think about this story. Why don't you just zoom in and tell us what really happened? And sometimes that's really good advice for people because, they've gotten too close to it or too far from it or something like that. So, yeah, that's the kind of advice we give. And also, of course, beginning, middle, end, hook, and stakes. Hook, stakes, beginning, middle, end.
Yeah.
And also, just to piggyback on that, because the one that the theme that I had was pride, and I think the thing that I struggled with so much is at the time I was not feeling a whole lot of pride, and that was what we leaned into, and that was what it kind of became for me. It was kind of the anti-theme in a way, and it made it even more special because I was just telling a story from my past, what the present's been like, and how I can maybe fight for a better future after all of the turmoil and things like that, and learn the lessons from the past and use them.
And what a great pride story that ended up being. I mean, it was really amazing.
It's getting better and better.
Yeah.
It does get better.
And Adrianna, can you tell us a little bit about the process of putting your story together?
Yeah, so I actually, like I said, I was really nervous to do the story, but I glamorized the process for myself. So I pretended I was in a movie. I, dressed up, went to the coffee shop, did all the things, had my headphones in, and I would just start writing. And I got into that moment in that process. And there was a lot of emotions involved, of course. I told a story about my aunt and how she passed away. And, I got up on that stage and still had a lot of emotion. But a piece of advice that Bonnie and Dylan told all the storytellers was to take those pauses, take a breath. The audience will be there and they will wait for you and they want to hear what you have to say. So yeah, it was incredible. I am so blessed. I'm so happy that I got a chance to speak and even do this now.
Yes, same.
Yeah.
We are too. I mean, it's like we work with people and then you have this month-long experience with people that's very personal and intimate, and then it, like theater or like any kind of performance, then it goes away. But we've just built something, so we really do try to keep people after it's over too, and keep the community growing and building on itself. So that's been cool too, to get to know people afterwards as well.
And I have to dig a little bit here, too, because it is writing on air. Within that month that you guys work on, do you guys encourage the people you work with to physically write down the stories and then look at them, take some time to add that pause? So I find when I have like an emotion or a thought necessarily, sometimes it's so energetic in my head that I feel if I don't put it down on paper, I lose it for a second, or I lose the quality of what it is. So for me, that's been a personal process. If it's there and I don't, if I'm doing dishes, take off the gloves and write it down immediately. Do you guys do work like that during that month?
Yeah, so I think we do both. It's really, some people want to write down the story and read it, and some people just want to tell it. And I think Dylan and I are both kind of encouraging people to move towards just telling as we go on. But I think there's something really valuable that comes with writing it down first, just to get it all out and kind of get that lump of clay to work with and kind of see what is the most important stuff and what is kind of the fat you can trim and that kind of thing. But we don't really have any rules about it. With the Moth, you can't have any notes or anything on stage with you, nothing written down, which is cool. It's its own thing. And like I said, I think we are kind of moving towards that a little bit, but I think writing is still a really important part of that, and writing down.
Yeah, I think when we started off, everything was written down. We were always writing down stories. And I think that, Bonnie, correct me if I'm wrong, but that came out of a kind of writerly impulse of yours, didn't it? I mean, you were like, I love written stories. I love to write. I mean, Bonnie and I both love to write a lot. And we think in terms of like writing, even today when we were giving notes, or yesterday when we were giving notes to our March storytellers, we really do consider it exactly like a short story. We really think of it as a short story and something that really has drama in it and builds to a point in the story where things can't can't go back, and we think about it, denouement. We really want the story to have a moment at the end where there's a pause and the main character reflects on what's happened, So it's very writerly, even when it's just a told story. Even when it's a told story, and I think that's because Bonnie is an author, in many ways. I mean, wouldn't you say, Bonnie, that's partly why?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. And also, as you were talking, I was just thinking about how it sometimes is a funny experience because we're dealing with people's very personal stories. And so sometimes we're really thinking about, my writerly brain turns on and I'm like, structure and like, let's move it. And then I'm like, oh, wait a second, we're talking about someone's very personal thing or trauma or whatever. And it's like, okay, how do we balance like making this a piece of art with like validating an experience and
totally.
So and it's fun. I love that part of it too, but sometimes my like writer artist like make the piece of art impulse goes hard and then I have to pull back a little bit and be like, okay, we're dealing with people's feelings here too. So
I feel like the actual night itself is its own story because you start with the beginning, you announce everybody, you announce Adrianna and I, and the other thing too is like you're always like plugging us, and you're plugging that I'm a realtor, you're plugging that she's a baker, and now we have the empanada lady, and it's just it's building out, and then we get to these stories, and as an audience member who's not involved in the month-long process, you don't know what you're going to get, and that's just so exciting because you start off and everything's normal, and you're in this building that you've been in, you're in the Chico Women's Center, and you know this place, it's familial, and you don't know what kind of ride it's going to be. Sometimes it's really some of these stories are incredibly sad, but some of them are incredibly funny, and it's this roller coaster that is just a mixed bag, and it's just
some
so
of them
exciting.
are both.
Yeah, some of them are both. Some of them are both. You're laughing and crying. I laughed and cried and sang in mine. It's like it's you don't know. Some people are going to cry. Some people are going to make you laugh. Some people are going to sing. Some people are going to not be able to finish. You think like how. Wow, it's just incredible. I leave there with such a sense of awe, I think, a lot of the time.
Totally.
So, Andrew and Adrianna, do you have any, since you've seen a lot of the shows, where Dylan and I are so close to the shows when we watch them, we know the stories so well, but you have seen many of the shows now. Do you have any favorite moments or most memorable moments or stories?
Oh, gosh.
So many. I think most recently Alex's story, just because there was such a plot twist, we were rooting for them, and then they did something that it was very questionable, but in the end we were still rooting for them. It's really a roller coaster. It's really a whirlwind. Like you said, you never know what you're gonna get.
The one that has stuck with me since last week, honestly, was I think it was Decade 70s was the last one that went, and she was a woman whose mother had passed away from dementia, and now she has dementia, and I think it was her daughter was on stage with her turning the pages. Her granddaughters, sorry, and she was turning the pages, and it was so incredible. I was trying to put myself into her shoes and really just I can't imagine what that would be like to know that you're going to experience that from the other side, and how it's like I said, it stayed with me all week. And then there's the story slam of the woman who went surfing in Baja, and her brother's friend told her that you could totally do number 2 in your wetsuit as a joke. And then she did. And it was just something that was so mortifying at the time, but then all these years later, she can get up in front of a room, let that go, let people laugh at her and the experience, and share not to do that because you can't do that. And it's just, so I've laughed about that, and there's just, like I said, you don't know what you're going to get, and that's the fun of it. And then I find myself talking to people about these stories, and they're not even my stories, and I think that's what intrinsically is so fun about it. So
you guys, I think that here's the reason I wanted to have you guys on the show, right? I'm a writer as well. Bonnie, I know you're a writer. But for me, I think as a writer, and when I was sitting in the audience, it was like I could clearly see how this is something where we're not presenting the full story. We have these themes, but we are introducing characters. And what's beautiful is that I don't go into these knowing the story is going to begin and end a certain way. There will be these vignettes that maybe do, but the community and the audience itself is its own narrative that plays alongside these beautiful, honest, raw, vulnerable stories. What's so cool, you guys, is that every single event that is attended is part of this greater narrative, this greater story that our community is writing. And I think it's so important, and listeners, I'm talking to every single one of you, that we have these voices that show up, and that we are not looking for voices in our community that fit a certain mold, that fit a certain agenda, but that can show up honestly, with sincerity, with vulnerability, and that can represent voices that don't necessarily get to take on the stage in our everyday life, because those are the ones that people really need to connect to, I think, more than anything. And we're always rooting for these characters in the story whose voices don't necessarily come through in the brightest light in our society, but come through with the strongest truth. Yeah. And that's what we relate to underneath everything, right?
I was going to, like, that was exactly what I was thinking at the time is when you were saying that, is that it kind of just, I think, cements the old adage that we have more in common than we don't.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think when we share these stories, we're all reminded of that.
Right.
And the more people hear that, especially in this day and age with social media, with our, the climate of our country and things like that, to remind ourselves and each other that we're all in the same boat, with the same struggles. They may take on different characteristics, but at the heart, we're all doing the same thing, and we all want the same things, and we all strive for the same things, and that's really amazing.
Who wants a quilt with the same fabric? Like, the point is, we all want warmth, but we want a different piece to tell a story, and then the community can be that kind of thread that weaves it all together, right?
Yeah, wow.
So we only have a few more minutes here.
I'm going to take that.
And we're going to weave in the right. So the metaphors are coming on strong now.
Megan, when are you coming to Bonfire?
Yeah.
When are you speaking?
When's your story? Yeah.
We only have 2 minutes here. I just want to open it up with a simple question to you, Bonnie. Again, thank you so much for really bringing this to our community. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You.
Yeah, you're welcome.
As kind of the, I don't want to say author, because you're all authors, but as the maybe editor, maybe as the binder that's putting this book together. What are your closing comments to our listeners here tonight? And if you can remind them one more time where they can reach out to you to participate, that would be great.
Closing thoughts are just that I think there's something so simple in a story, and yet it's so complex. It's real, and it's really striking a chord here in a way that I kind of knew would happen, but also didn't. And the support from everyone who's come has been amazing, and everyone who's going to come in the future, it's also going to be amazing. You'll be, as Megan said, the thread that ties it all together. So, if you are interested in being a storyteller, I would love to hear from you. Email is bonfirestorytellingchico@gmail.com, and Instagram is bonfirestorytellingchico. And the next show is on March 7th and 9th. The theme is control, and tickets go on sale the 14th of the month. That is a consistent time that they go on sale. 14th of the month, every month for the next show.
At what time?
What time?
At noon on Eventbrite, and also at Icoda Collective downtown.
Set your timers.
Thank you guys so much for being part of the show. Sorry we have to read such a quick outro, but it's only half an hour. So again, one more time to thank again. Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Adrianna. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Dylan, for coming. Hope you guys enjoyed it too. This has been Right On Air, which is made possible by the generous contributions of KZFR supporters and by Tires Plus Complete Auto Repair, offering Cooper, Michelin, and Ag tires in the corner of 6th Street and Broadway in Chico. Tires Plus also installs trailer brakes, custom suspension, lift and lower kits, winches, and custom bumpers, as well as oil changes, winter service, powder coating, repairs, and maintenance. Open at 8:30 a.m. Monday through Saturday. Find Tires Plus on Facebook at TiresPlusChico.com and at 530-342-8338. Hope you guys have a good night. Up next is Radio Radix with Brenton. Always a good show.